It's time for the final judge or judges, or how many are there left? I don't know. It's kind of crazy. So welcome back, everybody, to the Words of Life podcast with Adam and Kevin. We are finished with the official book of Judges, and as promised, we're going to venture into the book of 1 Samuel. But as we dive into Samuel and look at all of the fine details, we realize that there are multiple more judges mentioned. So we're gonna unpack all of that today, at least in part, and then we'll dive into the story of 1 Samuel and the birth of Samuel and how all that took place, et cetera, et cetera. So before we do that, we'll say hello to Kevin. What's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing, Adam?
Good. Are you officially empty nesters?
Yeah, for a couple of days here, we are. Yes.
right.
So our live-in house guests moved out over the weekend. Melissa's already gone in and torn up the carpet in the front room to start the remodel in there. But then
Yeah.
we will
You
leave
guys gonna
this.
put down some LVP or something in there? Or what?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
nice.
we will leave this Thursday to graduation, and then Kelsey will come back with us on Sunday. So
Yeah.
I think
Very cool.
officially
Very
it's
cool.
to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I guess we probably can't count the days we're not here. So let's call it 5 days of empty nesting.
All right. Well, live it up, man. Live it up. That's awesome. Good deal. Good deal. Not a lot of changing out here. It is officially busy real estate season, so we are. I'm in the midst of handling all kinds of spinning plates, and it's always fun. So good deal. All right. So yeah. So I was telling Kevin offline. I said I think we've been mistakenly calling Samuel the last judge, and we didn't even think about Eli in our conversations previously. And then Kevin's like, yeah, but if you read like John chapter 7 and 8, Samuel's called he judged Israel his whole life, and then he appoints his sons as judges, and people reject them. So, oh my goodness, we have like possibly four more judges to talk about,
right? Yeah, right.
But yeah, so let's talk about that really quick, and then maybe we'll just jump into the beginning of Samuel. We'll probably cover the highlights of the first few chapters today. So if you have your Bibles open, we're going to be covering 1 Samuel, probably chapters 1, 2, and 3, and we'll see if we can cover all of that, and if we get sidetracked with Hannah's prayer too much and things like that. But yeah, let's dive right in. So where does the story pick up, Kev?
Yeah, so we don't really get, if we're looking how Judges ended, right? We had the judges listed, then we had this sort of like interlude that is like, is this happening after Samson? Is this happening concurrent with other stuff, right? We don't really know. There's just these stories that are happening there. And then when we pick up here in 1 Samuel, what we're going to see is there has been another man who's been doing judging, right? Who we called Eli, but we don't get introduced to him. We really get introduced to this man and really this woman, and who's married to this man, and her challenges with barrenness, and so that's where Samuel will come from. But along the way, then we will meet Eli, who is a judge there in Israel. But what the time is exactly, as far as does this happen immediately after Samson? Does this happen right? It's really difficult to sort that out. So we're in the period of the judges. We're pre-king, and I'm going to say we're certainly after the book of Judges. We're after Samson and that kind of stuff. I don't suspect we would be seeing that kind of things happening in the same. There'd be too much overlap, right? Like you would have thought it would have been mentioned in the life of Samuel and Eli and et cetera. So I'm going to say Eli follows Samson. The question is how long after?
Yeah, but certainly the book of Judges was written to us and given to us for the reason of understanding how far adrift the people of Israel, God's people, had come post Mount Sinai, post covenant relationship with the Lord. Right, and how far they had drifted, and how they had allowed the other nations to influence them. We kept seeing, everyone did what was right in their own eyes, with all of the idolatry and the sin and all of the things that took place through there, the multiple civil wars, and et cetera, and the intermingling of all of the people that were supposed to be kicked out of the land, that weren't 100% kicked out. And so you still had this cultural, intertwisting, or, migrating. What's a good word for it?
It's intermixing, I guess.
Yeah, intermixing,
And really,
intermingling.
the challenge about that is the idolatrous practices that they're bringing in,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the challenge there. It's not that
It was a problem about the spiritual intermingling, not necessarily the people themselves, like,
that's
because
right, right?
we're all
Like
humans and all created in God's image,
right. And
but it
we
was
certainly don't want to suggest that, as has been
no,
in history, at
it
bad,
was the
poorly, right?
corruption it was the corruption of the people spiritually by
Right.
the influence of the practices of the
Yes,
people
of their
from
idolatry.
those lands,
And
and
that was the thing, right? When God said, when he first has Abraham down through there, and he's like, "This is a land I'm going to give to you," but the wickedness of this people is not yet full, right? And so that's why there's hundreds of years that pass before they come back in. And now he's like, okay, I've given them all the time. I've given them all the chances. They have completely corrupt and wicked. So now we're going to drive them out, right? It was
yeah,
because of their wickedness that he was doing that. And so that's why he said, don't mix with them, because you're supposed to be the rod that's driving them out.
yep,
But that didn't happen. We get this mixing, and interestingly enough, when we get to First Samuel, right, you see a little bit of a picture. You're still going to see some of those challenges, right? The Philistines will still be in play, right? You're still going to see that kind of stuff, but we're also going to see something that we haven't seen previously, which is when we get to verses 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What we see is that there's this man Eli, and he is a priest, and there are sacrifices being offered, right? So the tabernacle sort of worship is going on, and he is also then called a judge, right? Later, so
mhm,
we will see sort of this, whether it's a renewal or revitalization of the priests sort of stepping into their role and then being the judges as well, right? Which we didn't really see at all in Judges. The priests were sort of
right,
absent until we see their sort of perversion at the end of the chapter, at the end of the book. But here we see a priest. He's offering sacrifices. He's doing things. Now there are problems still, but he is also called a judge. Okay, so at least we have the right people doing the right thing. They are the ones who are supposed to be judging Israel, the priests. And so we will see that happening, which we did not see in the book of Judges at
yeah,
all, at least
yeah,
not spelled
absolutely.
out.
So the book starts out doesn't talk about Eli at all. It talks about
Nope.
this man from the hill country of Ephraim whose name was Elkanah or Elkanah,
Mm-hmm.
the son of Jeroham, son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Zuph or Zuph, an Ephrathite. So from
Yeah, and so that's an important thing right
Epaphra?
there. That's an important thing, because
Yeah,
he is, when it says that, we need to make sure we understand he's not of the tribe of Ephraim,
right.
right? He is not. He is from that region, and you may be asking, why is that important? Because later we will see that Samuel is acting in the role of priest. He is offering sacrifices. He is doing those kinds of things, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa! How does that happen? Because he's a Levite. The family that we've been just described here is a Levitical family,
Yes.
and we know that if we go over to Chronicles. In First
Yes.
Chronicles, it will lay out a lineage, and you'll see Elkanah, you'll see Samuel, you'll see that laid out. But if you just read this here, you're like, oh, he's from Ephraim. Nope, nope. That's just where he's from, not what tribe he belongs to.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing talking about the Levitical heritage because they didn't have their own land. They
That's
were
right.
assigned cities throughout the whole region that they were to be to serve as the local priests
Yeah,
for the people in all of the land.
yeah. And so
And
it's
so,
likely that that's what's happened here. This family
yes,
was assigned to the lands and cities around it within the tribe of Ephraim's
right.
inheritance, right? So that's probably what's going on there.
So Elkanah, and he had two wives.
Yep.
One of which was Hannah, and Hannah is the main focus here for a
In
little
chapter
bit.
1, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because Hannah was barren. But in their trips to offer the yearly sacrifices and to worship and sacrifice to the Lord
Yep.
at Shiloh, there were the two sons of Eli,
Yeah.
Hophni and Phinehas, were priests of the Lord, right? And then it says in verse 4, on the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion because I scrolled too fast, because he loved her, even though the Lord had closed her womb. And so it seems like we have another instance where
Yeah.
a man with a couple of wives, one was barren, one was not, and the barren one appeared to be loved more predominantly by the men, like the wife of first choice, but no kids,
Yeah,
right?
it's interesting to see that, right? Where we're seeing the sort of story again of the barren woman, the love for the barren woman, which we saw previously with Rachel and Leah. Um, and does he love Hannah more, or is he just giving her a double portion because he wants her to know that she is loved, right? Even though she is barren.
Yeah,
But
I'd assume a double portion.
yeah,
Yeah, interpreted more of like, hey, I
yeah,
you're my favorite, but
yeah. Or it's, hey, I gave
or
this woman and all of her children all
and
of
all of her
this, but
kids,
I'm still
yeah,
giving you a double portion. So you got one, she got one, and 15 others, right? So
yeah, that's
you get
true,
two.
yeah,
But the point is that he loves her even though she is barren, right?
correct,
And so we don't really get any sort of indication about this man other than what we have there, right?
yep,
And he's concerned for her. She goes up, she weeps because
sure,
she is always whatever. And he says to her, why are you weeping in verse 8? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Am I not enough? Am I not been, more than 10 sons to you? Right. Like he
right,
seems to genuinely love her. And he understands her distress. Um, and, she does have a bit of a problem there though, because this two marriage thing is causing an issue here because Penina, she rivals her, right? Because I'm so blessed to have so many children, you have none, right?
yeah.
Kind of a thing. And so,
She lords it over a little bit.
yeah, it's a provoking kind of a thing there. And so, she does like what we would assume that someone should do. She takes it to God in prayer. Right.
Mhm.
So far, everything we're seeing in the opening of Samuel is a refreshing change of pace from Judges. Like
For sure.
there's worship going on. It seems to be
Yep.
the right kind of worship. It's happening, at the tabernacle, as near you can tell, which is in Shiloh at this time, right? There's Levites who are administering it. This man is devout enough that he goes up twice a year to go and visit the place, right? Or every year he goes up to offer his sacrifices and do that. He's not just setting up his own altars in his own place. Now he is again a Levite as well. So good for him. He's doing the right things. His wife has a problem, so she goes and she brings it to God in prayer, right? And offering like
Yep.
everything here is like, oh man, this is so nice to see the change here of
Yeah,
what we've been dealing with
absolutely.
for a whole book.
For sure. And so we see Hannah really moved by the fact and just grieved by the fact that
Yeah,
she is barren. And so she, deeply distressed, was praying to the Lord and weeping bitterly. And she vowed a vow to the Lord in verse 11. It says, O Lord
yeah,
of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant, remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. Seems kind of a recurring theme here. We
yeah,
just read about Samson a few weeks ago. That was the same kind of vow. A little different circumstances,
yeah.
but the same kind of thing. Like, hey, I'm going to dedicate my son to the Lord if you will bless me with a son.
Yeah, and this one at least is, in that case, God appeared to Samson's parents, right, and said
Correct.
he's
Yeah.
going to be a Nazarite. This is how it's going to be, and they were devout and they followed that. In this case, she comes to him and says, if you give me the son, I will return him to you. And whether he's a Nazarite or not is a little hard to say. I mean, we don't see the fullness of that, but the idea
Right.
being that I will not cut his hair, I will do these things is, again, it will be a vow. Maybe it is something that it will be done at a later point, but she's consecrating him. She's doing
Hmm.
that in that way. And, the difference here that's interesting, we've seen some foolish vows kind of previously.
Yeah.
This one is thought out, right? She is
Yep.
clear on what she's doing. She asks for a son, and she will return that son and dedicate him to God. She's clear on
Hmm.
what's happening. She's clear on the terms. She's committed to it, right? It's not like whatever comes out of my house, I'll give to you, right? She knows exactly what she's vowing to God, right?
Exactly.
And it is
Now,
it
as
is
she's
righteous.
doing this, are introduced to Eli,
Yeah,
who is at least it doesn't actually call him the high priest, I don't believe.
Yeah, no, we just see that he's a
We just see him.
priest. The
He's a
priest,
priest,
yeah,
and he has two sons that are also acting as
priest.
priests, right? So he's at least an older, more elevated priest in terms of age and
Yeah,
elder,
and
in
certainly
terms
that's
of
the
just
way that would be. We often think about there was the priest, but no. There were lots of priests who were
lots of
offering
priests. Yeah,
sacrifices in the system because they were happening all the time, right?
correct.
And so yeah, he is a priest. He's got
So
these.
Eli's there, and he witnesses Hannah there.
Yeah,
And now, when Hannah is weeping bitterly and she's praying to the Lord, her mouth is moving, but she's
yeah,
not actually saying anything out loud. She's praying in her mind, in her heart, like we often do. But the actions that she's taking, the physical, it
yeah.
appears, at least Eli interpreted it to be, this lady must be
This
drunk.
lady's drunk,
She's
right? Yeah,
acting really, really strange. And so he kind of confronts her about that. Says, hey,
put away your
how
wine.
long will you go on being drunk? Put your wine away from you. Right. So he's trying to call her out on
Yeah,
this. But Hannah says, whoa, I'm just troubled in spirit. I haven't even drunk any wine or strong drink, but I've been pouring out my soul before the Lord. So do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for all along I've been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation. So Eli answered, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition that you have made to him. So, and he says, then she said, let your servant find favor in your eyes. And then she went away and ate, and her face was no longer sad. And so we see the result of this is that God answered her prayer, and in due time she conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Samuel. So we have the birth of Samuel here. And for she said, I have asked for him from the Lord.
yeah.
So all of you mothers out there who've named your child Samuel, then you've got a nice godly name there
Yeah, and
because
so that
he's
that
a
name
blessing from the
there,
Lord.
yeah, if you sort of look it up, right, what's going on is that apparently, again, I'm not a scholar in Hebrew or know it at all, but I can use a concordance, figure that stuff out, with the best of them. And so that word that his name sounds like the word, right? Sounds like another word in Hebrew, which means heard by God, right?
Hmm.
And so whenever you see El in these names or places, like that's God in Hebrew. And so Samuel means heard by God or heard from God. And so that's what she says. I asked God and he heard me, right? So his name is God
Yep.
heard me, basically. So that's what your name means. Your name is Samuel out there. God heard me.
There you go. All right. So we see Samuel's dad, Elkanah, again, and they continue to go yearly.
Every year. Yep.
Very, very faithful.
Yeah.
The yearly sacrifice pays vow, but Hannah did not go up. And she basically made a deal with Elkanah. Says, "Hey, I'm gonna finish."
Hmm.
I think when the Hebrew culture is speaking, I think it was several years of
Yeah. Oh,
weaning.
it's years before she takes him up and
Yeah,
gives him to the thing, right? But she says,
right.
when I've done nursing him, when he's weaned, right? When I'm not breastfeeding him
Yes.
anymore, basically, then
Yeah.
I'll take him up.
Yep. So yes, as soon as a child is weaned, I will bring him so that he may appear in the presence of the Lord and dwell there forever.
Yeah.
And so she's already in her mind, he's going to be serving at the temple because that was the promise I made to the Lord,
Yes. Hmm.
which is very faithful. And so he says, do what seems best. Wait until you've weaned him. Only may the Lord establish his word. So very faithful parents. These are great examples we have here. And so when she had weaned him, she took him up with her along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine. And she brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. And the child was young. And then they slaughtered the bull. They brought the child to Eli. And she basically says, here, I am the woman who was standing before
Yeah.
you that you thought was crazy. The Lord answered my prayer, just as you indicated. And this is the child that I prayed for, basically. And I have consecrated him to the Lord, and he needs to serve here with you. And so, therefore, I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is lent to the Lord, and he worshiped the Lord there. It's a beautiful start to this story. So then, chapter 2 is recorded for us what is called Hannah's Prayer,
Yeah.
right? Which is a beautiful poem, and a lot of commentators will talk about this prayer as kind of a synopsis for the whole arc of the story of Samuel, in that it's not just a personal celebration, but it kind of previews the whole message, right? That the proud people will be brought low, and humble people who trust God will be exalted or lifted up. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful poem. Do you want us to, should we read that?
Yeah, let's read it at least, right? And
Yeah,
then
go ahead.
so bread, but those who were hungry have ceased to hunger. Has borne 7, but she who has many children is forlorn. The Lord kills and brings to life, and he brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts up the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has sat the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the wicked shall be cut off in darkness, for not by might shall a man prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Against them he will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed.
Yeah, beautiful. And then Elkanah went home to Ramah, and the boy was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli the priest. So basically, Eli essentially adopts this young man into his
Yeah.
household, and Samuel will begin working at the temple there, or at least
The
the worship
tabernacle, yeah,
place, the tabernacle
probably.
at Shiloh,
Mm.
right? And he'll probably be doing all kinds of running around, and he's Eli's gopher for a while,
For a little
right?
while, yeah, right.
And so yeah. Then, of course, the beautiful start to this book turns sour a little bit
Yeah.
as we are introduced to the worthless sons of Eli.
Yeah, so we got their names earlier, right? They were priests, it said,
Yep.
right? But we don't know anything about them until we come into chapter 2. And then we find out in verse 12, they were worthless men. They did not know the Lord. And so that's sort of striking and should really hit you, because it says they are priests. They are serving as priests. They are offering sacrifices. They are doing these kinds of things. And yet here it says, but they don't know the Lord. Right. And so that should be something that just strikes us in a number of ways, right? Like, one, just because you're doing all of the things, right? And just because you're even serving in this capacity here in this case, right, does not mean that you have a relationship with the Lord, right? Like, that should be something that we definitely consider. And secondly, just because you see people who are doing the things that look like they're religious or are putting on these trappings of serving God does not mean they know the Lord. And so it's not really about those things, right? It is whether or not they're worthwhile. Right. Now, the reason that we see some of the things they're doing are called out, but those are symptoms, right? The real problem is, even though they're priests, even though they have the law, even though they know it, they don't know God. They're not serving him in actuality. And the specific thing that is brought to our attention here, it says that the custom of the priests with the people was that when any man offered a sacrifice, the priest's servant would come while the meat was boiling with a fork in his hand, and he would thrust into the pan or kettle or cauldron, and all the fork brought up the priest would take for himself, right? It says this is what they did at Shiloh, all the Israelites who came there. Before the fat was burned, the priest's servant would come and say to the man who was sacrificing, give meat for the priest to roast, for he will not accept boiled meat from you, only raw. And if the man said to him, let them burn the fat first, then take as much as you wish, he would say, no, no, you must give it to him now. If not, I will take it by force. And thus the sin of the young men was very great in the sight of the Lord, for the men treated the offering of the Lord with contempt. So the specific thing that was happening is that they were taking the sacrifices, and the way God had set it up for them to get their portion from the sacrifice, they didn't like that. They wanted to do it a different way. They wanted to take what they wanted first, basically, before the sacrifice had been offered, and do with it as they pleased and how they wanted to.
You read through Leviticus, and it is abundantly clear that the fat portions belong
Yes,
to the Lord.
that's right.
They're basically saying, no,
Give
we
us the
want
best part.
the fat portions.
That's right.
Right. And they're basically just they're despising God at that
That's
point.
right. They're despising the sacrifices.
Yep.
And they're on top of that, right? Like, so first of all, if someone came, they would say, do this for us. And if the people were like, oh, okay, I don't know, you're the priest, right? Like
Yeah.
that was one thing. But then if
Yeah.
the one was like, no, that's not how it's supposed to be done, then they were threatening, we will take it by force, right?
Yeah.
We're going to beat you up while you're here worshiping God and take what we want,
It's
right? And
it's
so
it's despicable,
yeah,
really. But it does remind me of passages at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 7, have it recorded for us, starting in verse 21. It says, "Not everyone." This is on my list of really scary
yeah,
verses.
yeah,
By
yeah.
the way, I have a list of scary verses or things said by the Lord that, like, man, I don't know if I can live up to that. But he says there in Matthew 7:21, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name?' And then I will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" This is exactly what we're seeing
Yep.
here in 1 Samuel chapter 2 with Eli's worthless sons. They're workers of lawlessness. They have disregarded the law of God, putting themselves first instead of worshiping man, instead of worshiping God and being selfless and following his rules.
Yeah, and what it does, right? So it's bad enough that they're doing that, but then what that causes is it causes the people of Israel to despise the sacrifice,
Yeah.
right? And so Jesus will say to the religious leader of his day, right, that woe to you basically because you don't enter the kingdom and you prevent others from entering as well. Like you won't let other people get in. You're standing as this sort of blockade, and that's what's happening here, right? It's bad enough that they are polluting themselves and doing this thing which is their own sin, but now it causes the people of Israel to say, this whole religion thing is a sham. It's just for the priests
Right.
to get what they want. It's da 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 da. Da. And so, we were talking a little bit offline beforehand, but that kind of stuff still happens today, right? There are behaviors
Unfortunately.
of
Yeah.
people who are espousing to be followers of Christ or interested in godly things who are causing people to go, if that's what Christianity is about, I don't want anything to do with that, right? Like you're making the offering to God despisable. And it's happened all through history, right? You go back and you see the things of the Catholic practice of selling indulgences and this kind of stuff, right? Hey, if you just give us money, then we can give you a get out of sin free card kind of a thing, right? Because we got to build
Yep.
these cathedrals. And what did that do to a lot of people? What? It's about you getting rich, right?
Yep.
And so that problem is here, and it just continues down through human history.
Yeah.
So,
And it was before then as well.
oh
They're
yeah,
not
yeah,
unique in this activity, but it is it's there for us to learn from.
yep,
So we try to be as true to the word as we can and not fall into these earthly traps for
yep,
sure. But then we have Hannah continuing to be an awesome mom. She would make Samuel
yeah,
a robe every year. It says a little robe. How
yes,
cute, right? But Samuel was there ministering in a linen ephod,
hmm
in a linen robe with an ephod, which is fantastic. Just adornment of a young priest,
yeah,
right? And indeed, the Lord visited Hannah and continued to bless her, and she conceived and bore three more sons. I'm assuming three more sons and
yeah.
two daughters.
Mhm.
And Samuel grew in the presence of the Lord.
Yeah. And it's interesting here, right? Because we've seen now twice effectively where Eli has pronounced a blessing on Hannah and Elkanah, and that blessing has come to pass. God has backed him up, if you will, right? He said to her, "Go and may the Lord grant your petition." Like God
Hmm.
will do what you have prayed for, and she has a son, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
then he
awesome.
comes here and he says, she does this all the time. And in 20 it says Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife yearly, right? When they would come up and do this and say, "May the Lord give you children by this woman," for the petition she asked of the Lord. And God does, right?
Hmm.
So the blessing of him as the judge and the priest, God is hearing that. He's seeing the righteousness worked out. He's remembering the faithfulness of this woman and this man, and the whole thing is just this beautiful picture of God hearing his people and doing this thing because they're genuinely devoted to what God is about and what he's
Yeah.
interested in doing.
So we have a little confrontation next between Eli and his sons.
Yeah.
and Eli makes a feeble attempt to getting them to stop doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and worse, right? We
Right?
we get
Yeah,
to see there's
and
worse
worse. Yeah,
stuff that's going on as well.
there's only scratched the surface with the accounting that we just had with them
Yeah, yeah,
bullying
yeah.
people for taking their own portion. But yeah, they're fully engaged in all kinds of nefarious and sinful acts. Some sexual misdeeds and
Yeah, yeah.
misconduct and just all kinds of things. And then we have God. It continues to mention Samuel along, so it's
Yep.
keeping us okay. Eli and
Here's
his
his sons. Here's
sons,
Samuel.
right? Hey, but Samuel continued to grow both in stature and in favor with the Lord, and also with man. So Samuel is rising. Everybody recognizes that Samuel is of good stock, and he's blessed by the Lord. He's doing what is right. And then we have the rejection of Eli's household by the Lord.
Yeah, and that kind of is, this statement that Eli has when he's interceding to his sons, saying, "Hey, this thing you're doing is not good, right? You're laying with the serving women at the house of the tabernacle, right? This is not good." Um, and he says, if you sin against man, right, then man can intercede on behalf. God will mediate. But if you sin against God, there's no one who can intercede for you, right? Like, now that's what you're doing here, right? You are despising the house of God. Um, it's telling there. We get these insights into what God is doing in the background, right? God heard and he did this, and God blessed and he did this. And here it's like the sons wouldn't listen to Eli because God has already decided these are worthless fellows. I'm putting them to death, right? Had they repented, he would have changed his mind, but they're not going to, and he's putting them to death, and they're not going to listen because this is the purpose of the Lord, right? And so what we have happen there, right, is then that full rejection starting in verse 27 there. And we get another person, some other prophet, right, that we don't really get named, just as another
An
person.
unnamed prophet, yeah.
It came a man of God to Eli and said, "Thus says the Lord, did I indeed reveal myself to the house of your father when they were in Egypt, subject to the house of Pharaoh? Did I choose him out of all the tribes to be my priest?" So again, we know that, again, this priestly thing that's happening here is legitimate. They're of Levi, to go up to my altar to burn incense, to wear the ephod before me. I gave to the house of your father all my offerings by fire from the people of Israel. Why do you scorn the sacrifices and my offerings that I commanded for my dwelling, and honor your sons above me by fattening yourselves on the choicest part of every offering of the people, right? And so God sends this prophet to call out Eli and his sons there, right? And apparently you say, well, what did Eli do, right? Like, he's not the one engaging in these things, right? But apparently what should have happened, because Eli knew about what was going on, is he should have stripped them of their priestly role, right? And the fact that he doesn't do that, he lets them continue to be priests, he lets them continue to do this thing. God calls him out on that you are fattening yourselves on the choicest part of the offering of the people. Like, you should have put a stop to this, right? When you saw these things that were happening. And certainly you're the judge. We'll see later. It says that he judged 40 years. You're the judge in Israel, or at least in this place. And so you should have judged against your own sons and put them to death even for the types of things that they're doing. And you did not.
Yep.
And so what you get in 30, I promised that your house and the house of your father would go out and out before him forever. But now, right, those who honor me, I'll honor, and those who despise me will be lightly esteemed, right? I'm going to cut off your strength, the strength of your father's house. There will not be an old man in your house, right? He lays all these things out for them that you're going to die by the sword of man, right? And then in 34 specifically, he gets really to the point.
Yep.
This that shall come upon your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, and shall be the sign to you. Both of them shall die on the same day. And I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who will do according to what's in my heart and my mind. I'll build him a sure house. He will go in and out before me forever. And everyone who's left in your house will come to employ him for a piece of bread, a piece of silver, a loaf of bread, and will say, please put me in one of the priest's place that I may eat a morsel of bread, right? So he's basically saying, I'm cutting off your line from the priesthood, right?
Yeah.
And you will know that this is happening because both of your sons are going to die on the same day, right?
Yep.
That will be the sign to you that the thing that I'm saying will come to pass, and it's not just coincidence, right?
Exactly.
But it's by my hand.
So you have it's just kind of crazy. Like, I was trying to think about how many times did I mean, are these are Hophni and Phinehas, are they like PKs of the modern world,
Sure.
right? When I say PK, I mean preacher's kids,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes we've I mean, I've known examples of men devoted to preaching the word and shepherding a flock of God's people, or at least, what we would call pastoring,
Yeah.
being the main preacher, ministering to a congregation of people, whether they served as an elder or not. But you see them wholly devoted to everybody else, but somehow not quite having a handle on their own family,
Yeah.
right? And so what ends up happening, you'll have a faithful man who served the Lord his whole life and served by teaching and preaching and helping other people come to the Lord, and yet somehow his own family is neglected somehow, and those kids, as soon as they're available or able to, they just run away from that life, and it's super sad. But you see in the Bible how many times you see a faithful man
Yeah.
who's simultaneously not a very good father.
Yeah,
I mean, even David,
you're right. You're gonna see it here twice,
right?
right? Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
And then you're right. You think of David, and you think, well, David's son Solomon, right? But Solomon kind of goes after his own thing in his later days, and
but
his
it's not
other
just
sons
Solomon. His
are,
other
yeah.
sons were
So
like,
his family's a train wreck, right? Yeah, there's all kinds of things that are going on there.
yeah.
Uh,
So I guess
yeah,
there's traps to being publicly devoted to the Lord,
yeah, and
and some right. I mean, how do we avoid that? How do we serve to our full capacity, and also make sure we're ministering? Our first priority really needs to be our own family in terms of
that's right.
us teaching and rearing our children up in the Lord.
Yeah, and that's something that they were supposed to be doing as well, right? And at least it appears in the story of Eli anyway, right? That the challenge here is that these two sons sort of come into this place of privilege, right? That yeah, I know the things, I've studied the stuff, I know the rules, I know whatever, but what are you going to do, right? Like my father before me, I'm the priest, I can do what I want. And there was no real sort of restraint that was taught to them. And then secondarily, when that happened, there was no putting an end to it from Eli, right?
Right.
As soon as that practice began, Eli should have shut that down.
Yep.
And again, the picture that we get, how it plays out in actuality, I don't know. But the picture we get is that it seems like it started with the offerings, right? Sort of the taking the best
Hmm.
part, whatever. And then it becomes, basically the same sort of idol fornication that happens at the temple in the pagan world is happening here, right? Like it's
Right.
because you didn't stop this, then it turned into that, right? And at that point, you should have killed them, right? You should have brought judgment, but you didn't, right? And so you just
Right.
let them get away with it. You let them get away with it, and so it's hard to know, when he went wrong at first, perhaps, but certainly there's
Yep.
places he should have stepped in and done what was right, and he didn't. And that may be because he is thinking, I'm the priest, I'm the whatever, I can't call out the sin of my own children. It will make the family look bad, right? Like there's all these kinds of things that we still do today
Yep.
that are dangers, and we should learn
Yeah.
something from
Yeah.
this story.
Absolutely. All right. So I wanted to get through chapter 3 before we wrap up for tonight. And so let's get into chapter 3. This is really where we see a transition into Samuel as the focus,
Yeah.
right? So the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli, and the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision, which is
Yeah.
interesting. It's a really interesting side note because after the book of Malachi, which is arguably the last uh, chronological
Yeah. Written.
recording of a time period of prophecy, we got like 400 years before John the Baptist shows up on the
Yeah.
scene, right? And so a period of silence where God is not actively providing often. It was rare in those days. It wasn't
Yeah.
frequent vision. It didn't say God was absent,
No, because we saw
but
a minute ago, right?
yeah,
This
a
man of God
prophet was
came and brought him a prophet,
sent to
right?
Eli,
But
right? For
it
sure.
was that sort of thing, right? there is a big judgment that is coming, and this other than that, right? It's you go and you consult the Urim and the Thummim, right? But that's it.
Yeah. So Eli's getting old. He can't see very well anymore, and he was lying down in his own room. But the lamp of God had not yet gone out. There's the keeping of the oil and the lamps and all that kind of thing. So, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so the Lord called Samuel, and he said, "Here I am." But he assumed it was Eli calling him. So he ran into Eli's room and said, "Hey, what do you need?"
Right.
And Eli says, "I didn't call you. Go back to bed." And that happens like 3 times.
Yeah.
And so the final time that Samuel comes, the Lord speaks to Samuel. Eli finally tells him, "Go lie down. If he calls you, this is what you're going to say. 'Speak, Lord, for your servant hears.'" So Samuel went down and lay in his place, and the Lord came and stood, calling as at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant hears." And the Lord said to Samuel, "Behold, I am about to do a thing in Israel at which the 2 ears of everyone who hears it will tingle." So, hey, this is something going to happen. Everybody's going to know about it. Everybody's going to be talking about it. "On that day I will fulfill against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house from beginning to end. And I declare to him that I am about to punish his house forever for the iniquity that he knew, because his sons were blaspheming God, and he did not restrain them. Therefore I swear to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be atoned for by sacrificing or offering forever." So no atonement for his house via sacrifice. And so the next day, Eli compels Samuel to recall and tell him everything that the Lord said to him. And so he repeated it, and Samuel and Eli said, "It is the Lord. Let him do what seems good to him."
Yeah.
Which is a fitting response. Like, what can I do?
Well, yeah, and he's heard this before, right? He heard this previously, and basically what's happening now is he was told this is what's going to happen. Now he's getting told it's going to happen soon, right?
Yeah.
And this is the message. "Eli, remember what I told you? It's going to happen soon." And he goes, "As the Lord sees fit," right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Let him do.
And then we have the end of chapter 3, which is where I wanted to get to. It says, "Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and let none of his words fall to the ground," which is an interesting turn of phrase there. Basically, like when Samuel spoke, people listened, and it was it people knew that he was speaking as if he was speaking for the Lord.
Yeah, it's that idea there that like when he would prophesy something that was going to happen, it happened, right? And that the way it's set up is if Samuel says it, God backs him up, right? But it's actually that it's because he's telling you what God had said, right? So this thing he said about Eli is going to happen, right? And so that's how it says they knew. Everyone from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel was a prophet of the Lord, right? Because if he says something, if he predicts it, it comes true every time, all the time, right?
And then it says, "The Lord appeared again at Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh by the word of the Lord." So God was with him. God was communicating with Samuel on a regular basis and establishing Samuel as the new priest in Israel that people would go to for wisdom and knowledge and leadership, true spiritual leadership, which was lacking under.
Yeah, and so this is part of what God has said there, that he's going to have another priest, and he's going to make it clear who that is, right? And so it's Samuel. That's going to be clear, not only because, well, he's basically like the people might have just thought, well, we had Eli and we had his sons, and God killed all of them, but Samuel's left, and he was sort of the heir apparent now, I guess. He's like his adopted son, so I guess. But it's not like that. It's no. God speaks to this guy. This is like, he is established as a prophet. So when there is this vacuum, it will be very obvious that God intends Samuel to be the person that's going to step into that place.
100%. 100%. So there it is, the start of the book of First Samuel and the establishment of Samuel, the new prophet of the Lord. And we're going to pick up with you know, the fulfillment of God's promise to Eli and his family in chapter 4 and beyond. And then we're going to see the fallout of Samuel's family,
Yeah.
unfortunately, right? Leading us towards the inevitability of an established king for the first time in Israel, which is going to be where we're going to see a lot of the most well documented and told stories
Yeah.
in the entire Bible, really, in my opinion. The most detail about events and all of all of the things that take place are really in this section of scripture, which is kind of exciting. So, with that, may you all have a blessed week. Go out there and be strong and courageous, and don't be like Eli. Y'all have a blessed week. We'll see you next time.